and he's actually been on my other channel before. So this is him on this channel, and the reason I'm bringing him on is because he just finished a full entire game. He was the lead developer, lead programmer on it. The game is called Strange Brew, and so I just wanted to talk to him about that because I love playing games. So CJ, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Usually I just go by Skillen actually,
Okay,
so
Skillen.
it's just my last name. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I will say we have not, as of right now, currently the game is not like 100% complete, but we're getting there. We're getting
Mhm.
there. The release date is fast approaching.
Let's go ahead and start talking about the inception of the game. How did you guys come up with the idea?
So originally, I started working for this company like about 8 years ago, and my boss initially had this like concept that he really liked. So he's a filmmaker by trade, and he's like really big into like specifically horror movies and like kind of like indie horror movies and stuff. And he loves zombie movies, and he always wanted to make this game where the main character was basically a caffeine addict in the post-apocalypse. And I think this is because like one day like we ran out of coffee in the office, and he like was like not having a good day, and he's just like, oh, he's like, it'd be like a good premise for a game. And that was kind of like the core concept of it. And then another a former employee named Kevin Whitmore, who actually works, as far as I know, and he works for another game development company. But he had done a game jam game called Coffee Gets You There, and my bosses had purchased that from him when he was leaving the company. And then they kind of came to me and were like, "Hey, would you be able to make a game that we could put in like a full production game that we could make out of this?" At the time, I honestly was like, I have no idea. I was like, well, I'll think about it and I'll see what I come up with, and I'll give you the pitch. And if you like the kind of idea that I have, then we'll kind of work on it from there. And so I was like looking at a bunch of other games, and I didn't want to make another zombie game because there's so many of them already. And by zombie game, I mean specifically the type of game that everyone thinks of when like Nazi zombies or like, Call of Duty, like that kind of thing. So I was looking through, and I actually saw like a clip of Tomb Raider, and the segment where she was getting chased by the pygmies out of, I think, a temple or something. I was like, oh, okay, like that's really cool. Like that's a really cool sequence. And then I saw the lumber mill in, I think, Days Gone, and then how like as you're running past, you use like the traps and stuff in order to kind of like slow down the horde. And I thought that those two concepts were like really compelling to me, and then I just wanted. I was like, okay, like what if we could probably make a game that's much more like zombie movies, where you're like running from location to location, and you're not doing so much fighting with those two concepts. And that's kind of how I put it together, at least. There's like tons of influence from other games too, but those are the main things that kind of got me like going down this track. So
And was this the first game you were the lead developer, lead programmer? As in, before this game, did you work on other projects too, but you weren't the lead?
so yeah, we'd started other projects and then like worked on them for a bit, and like other people that had worked at the company had worked on them. Like I have my own like side projects or whatever, where I guess like technically I'm like, well, because I'm the only one who's working on them, I'm like the lead of everything. But really, what had happened is there's a sequence of other people that so I started, and there were several people who were like kind of like working in the same like I guess department, or like, I mean, it's a pretty small company, like 10 people, but like, four of them are programmers, and I was kind of like started at the bottom. And then over time, just like other people had left, and like I knew, well, I'd worked on like pretty much all the projects, and so like I ended up kind of like knowing all of them inside and out. And then for this, it's kind of like, okay, well, here, like give a shot like managing this thing. And I mean, I don't know. It is one of those things where I guess like, so like I was in the military for kind of a short period of time, I guess, like 5 years, and I was in the officer training for that. And then I run like, a HEMA club, and like I'm used to kind of like organizing certain things. And I think that like my experience with that has definitely helped. There's nothing quite like trying to organize people who are like working on making something creative. I suppose it's like, well, it's like I was in a band. Well, I technically still am. We just haven't like jammed for a while. And it's very much like every person kind of has to bring something to it, and you don't really know if it's going to be good until like it kind of is like at the end, and you're just kind of like, okay, we just all do our best. And like we've had like a few level designers who are like, you know, some are great, some are like less than great, and like I have to a lot of times go in and do like basically like quality assurance in order to like make sure like that the work that's getting submitted is like up to par, and then like my boss takes a look at it, and if it's not up to par, then it's kind of like, you know like I'm to a large extent responsible for it. I would say like the lead technical artist is kind of like, equally like equally senior. He started before me, but like he basically manages like more of like the art side of stuff, and then I manage more of like the, okay, in order for the game to work, we need this, and this type of stuff. So like there's, I guess, like the aesthetic side of things, and like I don't really like interfere with that so much. Like I'll give suggestions and I have opinions and like, all of that, but when it comes down to like what the game needs in order to like function so that you can like get from the start of the level to the end, it's pretty much like, or how to implement some solution, right? Like we need to get this to work, and somebody has to make a call on how we're going to go about doing that. It's that kind of falls down on me. It falls down to me, I should say.
How does the company that you work for, how do you guys determine what genres to make? Is it just kind of like just based on what you guys feel like, or do you guys investigate the market, or do you guys like have specific genres that you always want to do?
This is more of a question for my boss, honestly. But essentially, like I said, my boss was just like, "Oh, I really want to make this game." Like, I'll be honest with you, it's very much more like creative, passion driven, much more than like we're not really like sitting there and doing like market research and trying to like, do focus groups in order to figure out like, oh, okay, this genre is hot right now. Like my boss pays attention to that stuff, but we've been working on the game for 5 years. Like, how do you predict if something's going to be hot 5 years down the road? Like, you just can't. Um, so I think the only thing that you can do is just have something that like you care about, and like um, I was kind of saying before, it's like somewhat ironic that it's like, oh, the game that I ended up kind of like designing is one in which like you aren't like, the point of it isn't combat, right? Because it's like, generally speaking, I play very combat centric games, and like, I do HEMA, like I do like uh what do you want to call it, full contact sword fighting as like my hobby and stuff. So, I'm not averse to, like, let's say physical altercations or anything like that, but I wouldn't naturally have just decided to make a game that where combat isn't a central mechanic. So sometimes it's kind of like whatever the task that you're given with, you just have to like run with it. And sometimes, like what fits most for the identity of the game, like it's artistic art integrity, I suppose, or something like that. It's more like aesthetic integrity is the way that I'd see it, where I'm like, okay, but like to make this what I want it to be, even though I would like for it to have, like uh, some central combat or whatever, it doesn't fit. So I'm not going to force it in there. And like I've worked on other projects, like we've done all kinds of stuff, from kind of like a side-scrolling puzzle style project where kind of like Oddworld, or like Oddworld, or I think something like Mind Scan or like Brain Shock or something like that. Like there's a whole genre of this, and then kind of uh, what else? I worked on a side-scrolling beat 'em up for a bit, and that didn't end up going right. going anywhere. So like a lot of times what'll happen is like you'll start working on something and it's sometimes it's like one of the people involved in the project or one of the people who was pivotal to the project just can't like do the work or whatever. There's all kinds of reasons why you might not complete something. And I think this time around it's just like a okay, we're gonna do it. And then we kind of put all our eggs in one basket and then have just been going full bore on it because I don't know, it's like you when someone makes a movie, I don't know if they're necessarily sitting there and like doing market research on it, or like if someone's making like an album, or if they write a book. They're like some people definitely do, but like I think like for a lot of people it's secondary to like trying to express an idea.
Yeah, and I could argue that potentially one of the reasons why Hollywood isn't doing as good movies is because everything seems so cookie cutter. Like they're doing stuff because they think it'll appeal to the masses instead of like actually putting in their blood, sweat, and tears and artistic vision into it. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
would agree
totally.
with me on that.
It's so easy to just go into okay, you make a thing where you like shoot zombies, right? But like that's not that's not interesting. I mean, like not to me. I mean, it could be fun, but it's not necessarily interesting. And a lot of games kind of fall into that habit too, where it's like, okay, you know, Dark Souls was really, really, you know, popular, and a lot of people really like Dark Souls. Okay, well, we're gonna make our Metroidvania Dark Souls like, you know, Candy Crush clone, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and like I don't know, maybe something like cool comes out of it, but most of the time you're just like, okay, like it's it's different, but it's like I don't know. I just once you play like 10, 12 of those games, after a while you're like, yeah, okay, like I'll pass on this one. So
Yeah.
hopefully we made something that's a little different. Well, I mean, I would say like our game is probably closer to like early 3D like platformers, like
Yes.
probably closer to something like Crash Bandicoot is really the thing that I think it's like most similar to, something like that.
That was actually the game I was thinking about. I just forgot the name. That's what it was called, Crash
Oh
Bandicoot.
yeah.
Yeah, it did remind me. When I saw the gameplay, it did remind me of Crash Bandicoot. So yeah, I think that is a pretty cool sort of comparison. It's like sort of like that, but of course you got the coffee and the zombies and stuff like that. So yeah, I like that comparison.
I mean, I've played a lot of video games, so like, it's not really like anything to brag about to be like, oh, I played Crash Bandicoot, but like I don't know, I've been playing video games since I was like probably like three. It's like so I'm 36 now, right? Which is like kind of early millennial.
Yeah.
But like so like I was playing NES games like Ice Climbers as a kid, and like
Wow.
for like people my well I don't know, for like people my age it's like wow, like a lot of times people will be like, oh, you seem like your cultural references are like go back 10 years before really when you were born, and I'm like, I don't know, I went to my grandparents place and like we played NES games. Like I remember playing like Metal Gear on the NES, which is
Wow.
not a particularly good game. Like I've gone back and played the MSX version, and the MSX version is greatly superior. But like I don't know, like this is the kind of like I just I've played a lot of like old, very 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 difficult games, and like that is in my mind. Well, there was a lot of arcade influence back then, and in some ways, like that arcade influence is like really interesting to me, just because it's like okay, you know, like because you need to have enough depth in order to like have somebody want to put in another quarter, but you need to make it hard enough that if they're not like really good at the game, then they don't just sit there and like play all the way from start to finish. I think a lot of games now have kind of lost that edge, like that mentality, in order to be like okay, like you have to really want it. Well, I don't know. I just think it's even if you really want it, I don't think that that's necessarily like it's almost like the RPG, like the JRPG mentality of like, oh, just grind it out and then you can just coast through. And like, I'm very like, I don't like that. Like, if I'm getting through the level or I'm getting through the challenge, I should have had to have learned something, like as a player.
I think I'm definitely of that mentality, right? It's like it's a skill increase plus maybe like an accumulation of something. So that's definitely the type of game I like to play too.
I just think like older games, they weren't so caught in this current paradigm of like, oh, like every game needs to be everything to everybody. It needs to be like the Dark Souls, Legend of Zelda, Mario Party of whatever, like of like I don't know. Like a lot of games just feel very like unfocused and like I guess what they're trying to do. It's like, oh, okay, like it's an open world, and then just put in like 10 things that exist that could all be like a game, but
Yeah.
it's all of them, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like watered down.
Yeah, exactly. Every single portion of it is watered down, and together it makes kind of a game. But then, like, what if you're a person that really wants to play this one portion, like maybe the adventure portion, but the adventure portion is very watered down? Or maybe you're the type that wants to play the shooting portion, but the shooting portion is very watered down. Or you're the guy that wants to play the city building, right? And the city building's watered down. Or you want to
Yeah, totally.
upgrade your characters, that's watered down too. Yeah, I see what you mean.
I play like a lot of roguelikes and stuff, and they tend to be like really unforgiving, and like even when you increase like your stats or whatever, that's usually like that alone is not enough. But like game knowledge, you can have like a very like statistically like suboptimal character, but like if you know a lot about the game, you can like do all kinds of crazy stuff and like make yourself like get to the end of the level or like end of the game trivially in a lot of cases. So there's kind of something about that too, that it's just like I don't know. It's kind of like, well, I mean, it's related to like, HEMA or like, fighting stuff in general. It's like like it's not just like how hard you can hit or whatever. There's like a lot of like general kind of like knowledge that goes into stuff, and it's like but it's like the combination of like execution and like understanding. And like that to me is like, like games are perfect for that. Like that's what's cool about them. Um it's like I don't know, that's really what like I tried to focus on with this. And it's like there's uh like I mean there's always stuff that it's like, oh, I wish we could do more. I wish we could like, make everything like nicer and faster and like, you know, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like you just need to get a product out there and like and then you're just hoping that people like it well enough that, that it like you make your money back at least. So
Yeah,
um
so let's talk some of the intricacies of making this game. What were some things that, let's say, going in, you were maybe going in one direction, and then as you started coding, as you guys started developing, maybe it went in another direction. Are there any examples of that?
oh, there are there are endless examples. So initially the main character was not in the duck mascot. And then one day my boss is just like, what if we just put him in a duck costume? And we're like, oh, okay, like, sure. Original iterations of this game were like so different. Okay, another big change was like going from, so the standard kind of like free axis camera, right? To the fixed like on rails camera. Um, Man, that was a huge change. That's one of the things that's interesting because it's like Crash Bandicoot does that, and it's just like that's what I was fighting with, like up until just before we were talking. It's just like implementing camera stuff, and it's like okay, if you have a level where you're like able to like go down the left path or the right path first, and they loop around, and then things change as you interact with stuff in the level, and then the camera needs to adapt to that. It's like that kind of stuff. It's like it actually makes things like way more difficult. The camera stuff influences how you make the game. So if you think of something like Resident Evil, right? The reason that all these old horror games have tank controls is because of the fixed cameras rather than like the free floating camera. Because if you have a free floating camera, you can just always have your inputs relative to the camera direction. But if you have like these set cameras and you walk off of one side and you're pushing to the left, and now the camera is like at this completely different angle, when you push left, where do you go? How do you account for that? So that's why they made them all tank controls. So all this is to say there's like a lot of like these weird challenges that you end up with like that, and on top of it you want the transitions between the cameras to be smooth and kind of like feel natural, and then you need like the sequencing to be correct so that the transitions happen at the right time, and again it adjusts to things that happen in the level, because like, oh, maybe the player did something to close off one path, and now if they that collider that would trigger that camera used to be here, but now you don't want them to turn it off. Or there's like they're looping around in kind of like a figure eight, say, right? And then like when they hit both two triggers, then it like lets them out, and then they can run to like the next segment or whatever. So just managing all that kind of stuff is like quite a challenge. Yeah, another big thing was initially we were gonna have like this mini game where you like make coffee between the levels. And thank God my boss, in his infinite wisdom and generosity, was like, let's just not do that. There was this whole elaborate puzzle mechanic where you would like pick stuff up and have to like put like like pick up a wrench and then do this thing and like use the wrench on this other thing. We got rid of all of that. We like just everything that was like superfluous to the vision, everything that didn't just reinforce the theme of getting chased by zombies is actually kind of fun. And it's like everything that isn't that and isn't just kind of like platforming and like running away got stripped out. Like there was this whole like, oh, you have to like turn on like valves and like get coffee to like different places and then like brew coffee like in, for instance, like an old apartment bathtub, and by like turning on the water heater or like pouring fuel into the, it was so crazy, man. Just utterly insane. um and yeah, that was it was basically like point and click adventure style mechanics, but in this like 3D, like it was kind of more of like a 3D almost like puzzle game. But then we just were like, well, that part actually like was really unfun. And then we just made it into kind of like a pure platformer. And yeah, so honestly, there's endless amounts of stuff that we tried. There's gonna be like a shopping cart, I think, that you could like grab onto and like scooter like physics like roll around with, like something like that. Like thankfully that was removed also. I was like, oh my god, this is like gonna be a nightmare to like put into this already like quite large game. um so yeah, that's like just a few of the things. So we really like honed in on the vision of like what we wanted the game to actually be, like what was good about it. Like we didn't know what game we were making for like probably like 2 years, and like we didn't really know what was compelling about it until like 2 years in, and then it was like 2 years of like just grinding out. Like making levels is really hard, like designing levels is really hard, implementing them is really hard, fixing endless amounts of bugs. Like, oh, the loading screen doesn't work, but only if you like mash the A button when you're between levels. And I was like, oh no, like, well, go back to debugging. And so, yeah, there's a few examples, but there's even more. There's so many that I can't even remember them all at this point.
It sounds like you guys took quite a good iterative approach, right? Where it's like, okay, this feature we can remove and it won't affect the main thing. So it's like, it wasn't like, okay, we spent 6 months designing something and tossed it completely out, right? You guys were much more iterative with your approach.
Well, we got there. We got there. That's how we do things now. It took
Uh-huh.
a while to, I kind of like always, like on a abstract level was like, oh yeah, iteration is like the way to go, like make things quick, get them done, and then if they're junk, throw them away and just like keep going. Um, so some stuff though, is like it's one of those things where it's like sometimes you like do something and then because you're wasting time, that's when you start to realize that it's bad. Or like when you like mess around with it. So it's like, yeah, I don't think we ever got too overly attached to stuff. But I think in the future, definitely. So like, hey, if if you are interested in this game and you buy it, and allowed to make another game, and I can keep working at Electric Monk, which is a great company full of great people, then I think we would do things much more efficiently in the future. Because it's like it's hard if you don't have that like institutional knowledge. Like I never made a game before, like not like start to finish like in this way. I like and like no one on the team has like published a game. You know what I mean? Like our company has not published a game before, but like doing it now, I think we had to go through and probably make a bunch of the mistakes we made. Just being inefficient, not iterating early enough or like often enough. But I think if we are able to make another game, which please, if this game seems interesting to you, please look into it. Please allow me to potentially make another game with this awesome group of people who like I've worked there for 8 years. I really like them. Um, we would just be more efficient about it for sure.
Sounds good.
So
Well, if anyone else in the company wants to interview with me, just let them know. And I would love to interview more of them because game design is something that is really fascinating to me. TI-83 Plus, I built a game on there back in the day. That's what gave me my glasses. So
oh yeah.
if things worked out differently, if programming was not, I don't know how it was when you took programming in high school, but I felt so lost even though I created a game on my T83, but like I felt so lost like learning Java and stuff. It's just but back then
Oh,
we didn't have all the resources online that you can just do, and now you can just use AI to help you with code. But yeah, like
I mean,
anyways, long story short, if I were to have got like stuck with the programming stuff, game design was definitely one field that like I'm still interested in. So like I definitely want to support you guys.
I do a lot of programming, and
Mhm.
like video game programming happens to be my job now. Um, but like I've done more programming than I've done game programming.
Mm.
So like I don't know. It's funny. Initially, like the way that I actually got into programming was it was my last no second last year of high school, and so I was living in the States and I was in the IB program,
Oh yeah,
but I
I
had
do.
finished like a ton of extra courses, and like they're like, well, you kind of just need to do like the bare minimum. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that then, and then I'll just have like half of my time free. And one of the math teachers, like, he's like, hey, you have a free thing in the morning, like a free block in the morning, and he's like, well, there's programming. It's grade 12 programming, but like you should just show up. And I think he just wanted more people in his class so that it would stay open. I was like, yeah, okay. And then like I didn't really like get on to like I didn't go and like sign up for the class or like do anything. So like I started like 2 weeks late. I'm in the wrong time slot. Like he's like everything he's teaching is for like grade 12 programming, and I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. And then basically all I did was looked at the instructions, like the course material, like off of a website that he had set up. I just went through all the assignments, and I don't know, it's like it was programming in C++, which is quite a cursed language in many ways. I mean, I like C a lot. I do not like C++ that much. I think C is superior. But so anyways, I got like 98 in that course and then took it again. I think it was like either the next year or like the next term. I don't remember. But yeah, and then I basically was just like, oh, programming is actually like really cool. And I don't know, being kind of like, uh, you know, in retrospect, like I don't like, I'll put it this way. I don't have a diagnosis, but my sister's just like, you are autism. And I was like, oh, okay. Like cool, thank you. Um, so it felt like one of the first times that I could like express myself in a way that was like not super ambiguous, if that made sense. So
Yeah.
like for me, programming is like, oh, it's like precision on a level that I don't feel like I'm being misunderstood constantly,
Mhm.
which I mean, I've gotten better at communication and stuff, but especially as a teenager, it felt like I would say one thing and people would like completely misunderstand me and just very awkward. Um, so yeah, and then I don't know. Beyond that, I was in university, started in electrical engineering. Uh,
Oh.
Found out that electrical engineering is not so much making things, like not creating circuits. It's a lot of math. It's a whole lot of math. And
Yeah,
I was like, I don't really want to just do analysis on stuff. I want to actually make stuff.
I
And
see.
then I had to take programming courses as a part of that anyways. I just switched over to comp sci and then had to leave because essentially time and money ran out.
Mhm.
Um, and then, uh, basically wandered around doing a moving job and then like basically found my job here from
Wow.
going to like, yeah, I went to an art show for a mutual friend. Um, and then, yeah, he introduced me to my boss, Mike. And then Mike was just like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. It was we talked about XCOM mostly and about old games. And then a few weeks later, he's like, hey, um, do you want to work? Are you comfortable working in Unity, in programming, or programming in Unity? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty familiar. And then, yeah, I don't know. The truck I was driving at the time, the head gasket actually, or the front bearing went, and I don't know. It was like a divine sign or something. So I gave my resume and then started working at Electric Monk. And
Dude, wow. I
many,
love
many
your
projects
story.
later.
I love the story, man. This is the type of person I love featuring on the channel. Like, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing the story. Like, your story is so inspiring. Anyways, I totally interrupted you.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Like, it's funny too, because it's like throughout this whole time, right? Like, my life is like kind of in like total turmoil. I'm like 60 grand in debt from like university and stuff. And I'm just like, it's like I had started up the HEMA club while I was still in school, like still in university, and then just kept doing that. And it's like, like 12 and a half years later now. So it's like kind of that. And then like programming and stuff has kind of been the consistent stuff. Well, I mean, like, I actually met my wife online and then, we've been together for like, what, 7.5 or 8 years. Well, we got married in 2018, so we've been together throughout thick and thin, and then but yeah, it's like I don't know. I think that's kind of like how life is these days. Like, or I mean, I say these days, but for somebody who like post boomer, there's too much money everywhere, and you don't have to do that much in order to just get what you want out of life. I think that this is kind of like the story that like anyone like I think this is kind of like the story of like the millennial onward
Yeah,
generation is it's
agreed.
like, oh yeah, like I don't know, I tried to like get my degree, did not finish my degree, and it's like, okay, I had to like do a bunch of manual labor for years and then like got a random chance and like I have no way of replicating any of this and I don't like I'm just like um you I don't know, I guess like what it comes down to is for somebody who's like looking for any advice on this, okay, you need to talk to people because you need to get luck. Like you need to basically get lucky in terms of like having an opportunity. But
Yeah,
the thing is, you need to have enough like discipline, and you need to have like enough skill in order so that when that opportunity does come up, that it's worth hiring you or
yeah,
like it's worth keeping you around. Because
yeah,
otherwise, you just won't last. And that's normally what happens. It's like people get shots all the time, but it's like they just can't hack it. And it's like you need that drive, like you need that self discipline and uh, I mean, really, it's like most of it, honestly, is self-discipline. You
Yeah.
can like mental flexibility is also really important. Taking feedback from people, like
Yeah.
people will tell you something and actually adjusting to what they're saying, especially when it's somebody who's like, hey, I want to give you money, but you have to do what I ask you to do. You really have to figure that out
Yeah.
and you have to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, look, I'm the reason that I have had employment that that I lasted so long compared to like other people coming and going or whatever. It's like number one, I really like the work that I do, but like number two is like I listen to the feedback that I'm given and will actually adjust things in meaningful ways. And it's not always just doing what somebody asks. It's oftentimes understanding like what they mean and
Yes.
like accomplishing what they actually want rather than what they say. Because if you're very rigid in that, people are gonna get you just won't last. Like
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. People like they won't like have a confrontation with you. They won't tell you you're fired. You simply won't get your contract renewed. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that's kind of one of the things about being a developer, right? A lot of times the issue with good developers versus the bad developers, not an issue, but a comparison, is that the good developers will exactly know. They'll be able to interpret, okay, what does this person mean versus what the person's saying? Because
mhm.
the bad developer will often take them literally. And it's like, are they literally meaning this? Or like let's break down what they actually want, right? So I can tell that you've developed that ability to be like, okay, he's telling me this. Well, one, let's ask for clarification, but two, like, okay, what is this person actually wanting?
Communication, and I don't just mean like talking. Um, in fact, mostly I mean listening is incredibly important. Probably the most important, like in terms of general life skills, right? Like be it look, if you work, I don't for anyone listening to this, if you work at like a McDonald's, all like or like if you're doing the most menial like first job ever, or if you're like into your career, the most important thing to continue to develop, well, I would say two things. The first thing is the ability to communicate, to truly listen to what it is that people want from you, especially like the people that you are working for, to like understand like what they actually want and to help them achieve that. And the other thing is to never stop learning, which, I mean, it sounds cliche to say it, but honestly, there's definitely not more than a week that goes by that I don't end up having to like learn some new thing. Either it's like, oh, in order, like you have to set the cameras in this specific way in order to get these transitions to work the way that you want them to, or whatever. But like going out and seeking out new information that will help you to do your job and like just anything. I mean, the thing is sometimes you can't even predict like what's going to end up like coming around to like help you with your with whatever it is you're working on, but like going out there and constantly pushing yourself to like develop a new skill or to like work on something new, to push yourself like outside of your current like comfort zone a little bit is incredibly important. So, but yeah, there's like a, a bunch of interesting things that I've seen that cause people to like struggle like severely in kind of the position that I'm in. Because I mean, I've seen my essentially the predecessors. Sometimes people just the other thing is being able to say no. Um, if you are just somebody who always says yes, if you're essentially just like a yes man to then your boss is not going to trust you. You need to be able to say no when it matters, and you need to be able to explain why you're saying no to prevent and it needs to be in order to prevent some disaster or some like something bad from happening. Like you need to demonstrate enough foresight and like be able to communicate it clearly enough that it's like taken seriously in order to like positively impact the project. And like sometimes, you know what, like people are just looking for yes men, yes men or yes women or whatever, right? They're just looking for someone to kiss their ass. And the thing is, if you do that, you're going to be stuck doing that. Whereas I would argue for someone who's like really kind of like engaged and who's like wants to make a difference, you don't want to get stuck in that position. So it's you're not gonna like ever have any creative input if you do that. So you need to be able to say no at the appropriate time, communicate clearly why you're saying no, or like and offer alternatives. That's the other thing. Offer like meaningful alternatives or like be someone who helps solve the problem. So even though you're saying no, we can't do it that way, but we could do this or we could do that, or we could change something else so that now this isn't even a problem. That's really important. And I mean, essentially, what I'm saying is, if you get basically yeeted out of a company for telling somebody no, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. It's going to be soul destroying. They're not going to do anything interesting. And if anything, odds are, like from what I've seen in the past, if you cannot say no or like voice an objection, there's probably some amount of like fraud or something that's going to be coming down the pike, and then it's going to like hit the company and it's going to look real bad, and then everybody else is going to be scrambling, and you're like, oh well, I already had to move on. So like that's like I don't know. I feel quite strongly about this, and I'm uh it, to an extent, this is like a one of the important things that I do at my job is just being able to like, and obviously, you know, like when something is a good idea, you do want to like also don't just say no, right?
Yeah.
If, in fact, if you're saying no, like I said, offer an alternative. But then when someone has a good idea, also be very encouraging of that, because
Yeah.
you want people to come forth with good ideas, and try, don't be like confrontational if you have to say no to somebody, but make it preferably it's something that's like impersonal. It's just like, oh well, if we do that, that will cause this and this problem, or like that doesn't really fit with the vision, but like, you know, oh but that's a cool idea. I don't know, you just sometimes you're saying no to your boss, sometimes you're saying no to somebody who's like working for you, right? And it's like you just have to develop enough social grace to be able to do that properly.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Did you guys have product managers or program managers to help in the process, or were you basically also playing like program manager, product manager, project manager type roles?
I get. I'm not. What exactly do you mean by like a program or product manager? I guess.
So like for example, in web design or like developing a product in like a non-gaming space, because that's what I'm more familiar with. The program manager or product manager is almost like the bridge between the developers and maybe like the non-technical people. So maybe like the product owner or the boss or whatever. And a lot of times the program manager will be the
Mhm.
one kind of to oversee the more general vision kind of thing. Sort of thing. But maybe in your case, you're sort of the program manager and a developer at the same time.
Yeah. Well, the company is like maybe like between 8 and 10 people.
Mhm.
So it's like our team, like the core team that works on the game right now, is about 4 people who like we all work remotely, but we like meet every morning, and then we have 2 bosses, right? So there's, I guess my boss is the closest to like a project manager, because like he usually is like the one who's like, oh, okay, like here's the deadline for this or whatever, and then my other boss is kind of like the finances guy, but like he also did a lot of like um it's like when filing taxes and that kind of stuff, you like have to document a lot of this, or like you
Mhm.
have to submit like design proposals and that kind of stuff. So um, because we're self-publishing it, actually, it's really kind of like compact. Like it's maybe like 8 people really, and like so the lead technical artist, his name is Devin, and then there's me, and we kind of like manage 2 other people, one of which works on sound design and one works on like modeling and then like set dressing. I mean that's the movie term, but like level dressings, like putting in like decorations and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's my boss Mike, who is the filmmaker guy who came up with the concept, or like came up with the initial kind of concept of it, and then John, who's like the finance and like documentation guy. So I mean, when your team is like so small, it's kind of like you have multiple overlapping roles.
Yeah,
So there's not like a specific person who's doing that.
that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So probably like you said, one of your bosses is probably the closest to like a project manager or program manager type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. This is interesting because since last time we talked, right? I studied a lot into like agile methodology and how to like be more productive and how to
Oh
organize a
yeah.
team and stuff like that. So like that's why like this stuff interests me because obviously from a web design perspective, I would be more familiar with how a structure of a team is. But since this is game design, this is all new territory for me. So like I'm asking like an organizational type of question. But yeah, it's all very interesting. My friend, shout out Tingu, by the way, who I know is going to watch this, but I think he's designing a game by himself. So he's going to have
Oh
to
yeah.
all these roles we're talking about, like all the roles you told me about the art, the level designer, developer, programmer. He's going to have to do all of it. He was telling me that he had to learn how to use Blender and stuff like that. So
Oh yeah.
that's probably what your
So,
technical lead technical artist, right? He's doing the Blender stuff.
yep, yeah. He does a lot of like sculpting and then like texturing and then lighting and all of the stuff that I don't know anything about and would take me like years to figure out. He is amazing at that. Um, I can, I don't know. For I've probably written like as far as like code goes, I've probably written like 95% of like the actual like production code in the game.
Hmm.
I mean, aside from stuff that's like built-in engine stuff or just
Hmm.
like packages that you buy in order to like, do a specific thing or whatever. In terms of like unique code or code that is unique to our game, at this point I've probably written like the overwhelming majority of it.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's like I have like a side project thing that I work on when I have free time. It's kind of like a roguelike style like game about a fishman necromancer, much more combat oriented. And yeah, like it's 2D and like has like so I don't know. I just buy graphics that people have like made for this purpose and stuff. Like honestly, my strong recommendation is like if it's feasible, then like consider just like paying someone to like make a thing or like just buy an asset or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's not ideal, but like if it's one person, like it's
Yeah.
because just getting anything done, getting anything done is basically a miracle. No matter how small it is. So I don't know. That's something that I've come to appreciate is it's like you do not know how much work goes into like making anything until you do it and then you're like too deep and
Yeah.
you're like, well, here I am, and then
Yeah.
it's like this is like even something that seems simple, it's just an absurd amount of work and effort, and you're like, I would have never started if I knew how much it was.
Yeah, yeah. The project I was working on, 2021 to 2023, right? If the guy just stuck to it for like 2 more months, it would have probably been an MVP version, a minimal
Oh
viable
yeah,
product version
yeah,
would have
yeah.
been done, right? But he pulled the trigger, like he pulled the plug 2 months before. It honestly probably would have been done in a month, man, honestly. But it's just like, because it's that in too deep thing. It's like he's like, I put so much. How much more is there, right? And it's just, yeah, I get it. And yeah, this, and I don't blame him because he was the financier,
Yeah.
but it sucked for
No,
all of us
I
who
get it.
worked on it. You know.
Yeah. No, I get it. And it's
Yeah.
like that, that's exactly it. It's like, even with this, it's like, I would like to think it's going to be successful, but like, I don't know if it's going to be successful. And it's
Mhm.
like, no one knows. And it's like, well, unless you're like an uber massive, like, game dev company, like, you're putting yourself on the line every time you make something. Like, if it's a bomb, like, you're done. Like, it's just, and you just, one bomb will wipe out a studio. So I don't know. It's kind of nerve wracking, and it's like, okay, like, we're gonna put our thing that we've been working on, like, out there, and it's like there's a lot on the line, and it's like, for me, it's kind of like nerve wracking because it's like, oh, like, people are going to judge this thing that I've been, like, working on, and it's like, people are not friendly. Like, people don't know who I am, and they don't really care, and like, it's just how it is. But like, I hope enough people like it. I do think it is unique, and I think that that is really, that's the thing that's the most, this is like the paradox, right? The things that are most unique have the most potential to either bomb or do well. And it's like, if you go lukewarm, maybe that's not even good enough. Like, maybe you don't get to make another game. Um, but if you go for something that's like, I guess, like, creative, maybe it just sucks. I mean, maybe it sucks, or maybe, but hopefully, somebody, like, appreciates, like, your creative vision, and it, like, finds an audience. But like, you can't make any assumptions. Like, it's quite scary, and it's like, like, I don't know. In a few months, I might be looking for a new job, kind of a deal. So it's like, that's kind of how it works, though. And it's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I've lived my whole life.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I'm like, oh no, like, I was like, well, join the military, go to university, and then it's like, oh well, that didn't work out. And then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, drive a truck until the truck is broken down, and then you find, like, a new job doing, like, something cool, and then it's just like, like, this is life. And I'd rather make something that I think has, like, some, like, artistic integrity, or like, do something that I think is cool. I'll say it in less pretentious terms. I'll do something. I'll make something that I think is cool and risk failure. I'd rather do that and be like, yeah, I made this thing, and hey, maybe it sucks, and maybe it, like, bombs, but hopefully it does well enough. And then it's like, I'd rather do something cool and fail than just phone it in and not try.
Yeah. How
Like,
are you
that's really
guys
what I'm
getting
getting at.
how are you guys getting the word out, by the way? Because I found that gamer play your game, right? How did you find that gamer to like get him to try out your game? What was the process in that?
My boss, who's doing marketing, and we also have, like, we're consulting with a marketing company who's, like, fantastic. I have not talked to them personally, but my bosses have, and they have given us quite uh, valuable advice, and I'm forever grateful I mean, really, to everybody who's helped us out. But yeah, I think a lot of it is you write emails to people, and you're like, hey, you're a streamer, we're working on a game, would you be interested in this? And, but again, I don't really know the details. I just know you contact people and you ask. That's
Yeah,
fundamentally how
basically.
it's done.
Yeah. And I'm
Um,
sure closer to the due date slash when it gets released, there's probably going to be more kind of cold emails and stuff like that. So I'm sure that'll generate buzz because I looked up the game because I saw it on Steam and then I looked up the
mhm.
game and I saw that person play it, right? It was really exciting. So I think a lot of us, especially um those of us who want to do research, I think the first thing we do is we look to see if anyone else has played it on YouTube. So
Oh yeah, totally.
yeah.
And, like, I think a lot of what happens too is, there's a lot of games, and we kind of, like, I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of naivete or whatever, but personally, this is purely personal. Um, my perception of like buying a game, because like again, I play a lot of video games, and I like, when the game is like hyped up for a very long time, like 2 3 years, and then it just doesn't come out, I don't care. Like I just move on. So we kept it pretty close to our chest. Like we weren't like, talking about it. We weren't doing like, hey, like, let's have a live stream and let's talk about what we're working about today, and like endless devlogs and all this kind of stuff. Like we didn't really do that. And we're just kind of like, okay, well, like we're getting close, so we should probably start marketing now. And then we contacted the marketing firm in order to like, get some advice on it. And it's like, I think if we had started the marketing stuff a little bit earlier, it would have been good. But I think we're okay. And I think ultimately what happens is it's like right when the game's about to come out, that's when you want your buzz. You don't want your buzz like months beforehand, because then everyone stops caring. So
Yeah,
hopefully,
that joke, right?
hopefully,
Grand Theft Auto, Grand Theft Auto 6. The joke is, oh, we got everything before Grand Theft Auto 6.
oh yeah. Apparently, like every time someone plays the game or like streams it or whatever, then we get like a bump. Like we get more people paying attention. So I guess the hope is just that, by the time that the game comes out and we sell enough copies, that we stay open. um, which I mean, it's this is, like I said again, this is like the nature of like doing something creative, is you are actually on the line, both like in terms of like people judging you and in terms of financially. And that is how it is. And I don't know if it wasn't that way, I don't know if I would do it. Well, I wouldn't care about it as much, I guess. And like I don't know, like you have to have like that pound of flesh. Like you got to put the flesh in the game. You know what I mean? Like skin in the game, rather. I'm mixing my metaphors. Um, so like you want people to, or you need to, anything that has a chance of being cool or like meaningful, I guess, on an artistic level, you kind of have to go all in on. You can't, what do you call it? Do You can't be ironic about it, or you can't be disingenuous about it. You can't just be like, "Oh yeah, I just worked on this game. I don't really care about it, but I mean, whatever." No, like that's bullshit. Like, if you're doing it, you're gonna have to pour tons and tons of your time, your life into this project. You better care about it, like. So I don't know. I like it's scary, but on the other hand, I mean, so is life. Like
Yeah,
if it wasn't scary, it wouldn't be as meaningful, I guess.
yeah, exactly. A technical question for you: how easy was it to learn Unity when you had all the previous programming experiences? Like when the boss said, "Okay, can you do Unity?" Was it your first time ever to program in Unity, or had you programmed in Unity before?
So uh, I'm I was pretty familiar with C sharp already, just because like that was one of the languages that like I learned quite early. So like I learned like C and C++, and then right after that, I got a book called Head First C Sharp, which promised, by O'Reilly Media, promised to teach me object-oriented concepts. Um, Fantastic book, absolutely fantastic book, fantastic series. Turns out object-oriented programming usually has a lot of bad ideas in it. I wouldn't recommend. So really learning Unity was just getting my head around like the structure, like because Unity is mostly like C sharp, but then you just have to write it in a way that like fits in with like the framework of Unity. So you need to like at this point, it's it's one of those things where I've been working in it for so long at this point that it's like hard to think back. But I was quite familiar with C sharp, and then I had gotten the job offer, or my boss requested a what do you want to call it? like a resume, an application. There we go. It requested an application, and it was like end of December or something, or like it was like right at the new year, and I was like, oh, okay. So pretty much I was like, well, my time at this previous job is like, I'm I'm kind of well. So I had actually gotten accepted, and then I had like 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, I'm not gonna work this delivery job, which is incredibly stressful, through the holidays when I'm gonna quit. So I just quit there, and I went online and found an online course, and I just went ham for like 3 weeks, and then I got real familiar with like Unity, or like familiar enough with Unity, and then I just learned the rest on the job. So,
You're a very quick learner, man. That's crazy. It sounds like even though C plus plus, all the C languages, there's goods and bads of them, but they really prepared you. They really prepared you to be a good programmer.
oh, I would, yeah. Well, so C sharp is kind of like it's more in common with something like JavaScript. It's kind of like Microsoft's like it's its own thing now, but it started off as like Microsoft's JavaScript.
Mm.
I don't know. I would say like I really think like learning to program in C, in just normal C, is incredibly good, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna mess a lot of stuff up, but it's the uh, okay, C is like, the terrifying like drill that can drill through anything. You know what I mean? It's like super dangerous. It's like that very dangerous tool, but it kind of can do anything. And it's good to learn on, because like then you learn how to like do things with the super dangerous thing. And if it's just like little baby projects, then you're gonna probably use like some I don't know. I would say either like learn, if I were giving advice, I'd say either learn something like learn to program in C for sure. Just something really like something fundamental. Learn how to like allocate memory, learn how to like um, deallocate memory, right? Just something super basic. Try out Go. Go is like a very fun language to program in. It's again just very pragmatic. Um, And then beyond that, I would say like figure out what kind of a job, what they want at the job you're applying to. Like, I don't know, like right now, like Rust is trendy, but like I'm not super like crazy about it, because I'm like, oh, okay, like I don't know. I always hear the argument, it's like, oh, but Rust is so safe. And then I'm like, yeah, but if you want to do certain stuff, like then you hear people talking about like writing like a Linux kernel on Rust, and it's like, yeah, well, how do you make a linked list? And then it's like, oh, well, it's in the standard library. And it's like, you're not going to be using that in kernel level programming. Like, like it's, and so the problem that I have with Rust is in order to do a lot of like, in order to do a lot of like nitty gritty stuff, you end up just kind of having to like circumvent all the things that people talk about with Rust anyways. And then it's just like, okay, well, like you're using it in unsafe mode. So like, how is this any different than C? Like, let's be real here. Like other than like various syntactical differences, but I don't know. I think if you like learn C and you get comfortable enough with it, like C is one of those things where once you learn to use it, I don't know. It kind of like teaches you how to be good at programming. Like I don't really use C for my day job, but there are these microprocessors that I like called ESP32s. Um, it's just this little microprocessor. Well, it's not just a little microprocessor. It's a pretty powerful microprocessor. It's like a dual core, um, like it has RTOS, or real time operating system, on it. So it's like it's not exactly like multi-threading, but it's like a dispatch thing. So like you'll have like if you have a bunch of things that you want this thing to do, you just tell it. You say like, hey, here's a thing to add onto your list of things to do, and it'll dynamically like allocate how often it like attends to those things, and it's really cool. Has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and all kinds of peripherals for it. Pretty uninviting to just program the raw C to this thing. But once you get used to it, you start to like understand how it works. And it's like there's a certain kind of like a flow to it. And it's like you can do some really cool stuff. You know, you can make like some projects that I have. I have like a temperature a temperature and atmospheric pressure sensor on my porch that will update through the Wi-Fi to like another display thing that I have. It's like basically like an Apple Watch display, um, powered by one of these things. I was looking at making like, oh, I have like a couple of cameras that I just stream through the Wi-Fi, like to my well, really to like any computer that's on the local network. You can just take a look at what's there, so you can see like my front door from inside the porch, um, which is good for you know watching for deliveries and stuff. Like I don't know, it's just again like to go back to that like always be learning thing. Like a couple of years ago, I started like learning to use like Vim too for programming or like Vim shortcuts, and man, that has made a world of difference, right? The RSI, the repetitive stress injuries have gone down because you can just do stuff like so much more efficiently. I don't know. But yeah, in terms of programming, yeah, I think C, just regular C, is very good. Go is very good for just, it's a fun language to program in. If you want to sit down and just do something, I would like, and you can pick whatever you want. I'd strongly recommend Go because it's just good for doing stuff. Rust is trendy. I mean, it's probably going to have like, I don't know. My attitude on it is it's one of those languages where it's like if it's going to be relevant to the job you're applying to, learn it. Otherwise, like I don't know, if you like it, do it, but I wouldn't stress out about it if you hate it. But yeah, otherwise, like learn good programming procedure or like this is like kind of like one of those things that's hard to articulate, but like so when I started, it's like, oh, object-oriented programming is like the way to go. And it's like, oh, tons of inheritance, like all these hierarchies and all this stuff. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just keep things as simple as like here is my advice. Make things as simple as you possibly can. And if you cannot accomplish the task without adding some complexity, then make it more complex. However, when you're writing something, don't stress about that. Don't stress about all like don't stress about making your code like elegant or perfect or whatever. Get it done. Get it done. And then when you're like, oh, I've written this out like 3 or 4 times, then consider how to like simplify that to like deal with those kinds of problems. But yeah, don't premature optimization is like a curse, or like, trying to do not abstract things until you have a reason to abstract them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just be practical. Be practical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pragmatism is the key,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You want to do things to like, get things done and make money. Like you're not here making a beautiful art piece. Just make it. Don't program to cases that don't exist, right? When they exist, then figure out how to deal with them, right? But
Yeah. It's interesting. So your Head First book series, that's the one of the books I read on Agile. So it's funny, like
oh yeah,
you learned some stuff through Head First. I learned a lot through Head First. It is a really good book series. So
that's
maybe I should
fantastic.
pick it up for some of the other programming languages I want to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I at least give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I was looking at all the stuff it has to offer, and I'm like, man, some of this looks good.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's always expanding, or
Yeah.
it's expanded since I first looked at it. There's like I think maybe like 8 books initially, or somewhere around there. And
Now
now
there's
there's a
probably like
lot more.
20 or 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these days I usually, when I'm like learning stuff, I go about it in a very different way, but it's like it's kind of like the same with like fighting stuff, right? It's like, okay, like if somebody like has no experience doing any combat sports, like you teach them very differently than someone who has like a lot of experience.
Yeah.
So the stuff at this point that I would like recommend is going to apply more to someone who has like more experience, I think. Or
Yeah.
like if I were to describe how I go about learning stuff, because I mostly will just go and I'll like just try it out, and then I just will like, when I start running into problems, I just look up documentation and just kind of like, do my best. And yeah, I don't know. I it kind of well, okay. The one other thing I would strongly just recommend to anybody who's listening to this and like whatever, yeah, this is my personal opinions on this, but like I strongly recommend against like AI assistance. Use it as little as possible, as absolutely little as possible. The more you rely on it, the less you are developing that for yourself. It's like copying someone else's homework. It's not going to teach you. It's not going to teach you. And it's not to say like, oh, it can't do something useful. It absolutely can, but like the value for you as an individual for learning comes from having to go through the struggle. And if you shortcut that, you're cheating yourself out of what you would get out of it. Like you won't learn as arguably you won't learn at all if you use it too much, but that's kind of my thing on that.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. Like, I'm all about, Elon Musk calls it first principles, but I'm all about just like get to the fundamentals and build from there. And if you just take shortcuts like an AI to do it without understanding why AI is doing it that way, you're never going to build from the fundamentals. I'm on this journey right now, as you know, because I'm applying to grad school. And I realize all these years that the reason I had trouble in multivariable calculus was, one, some of my algebra foundations weren't completely there. And two, some of my trigonometry, second semester of trigonometry foundations weren't there. So like that affected me in multivariable calculus. Like that's a process right there. So like what I'm telling people this and why I'm in the process of rebuilding a lot of my foundations is, if you don't build your foundations, eventually it's going to hit you. For me, it took until multivariable calculus where I was like, I don't fucking understand anything right now. But like other people, they might get to linear algebra. They might get to like, they're the head of a project somewhere. And then it's like, oh, shoot. So somewhere my foundation wasn't there. Somewhere my first principles wasn't there. So I wasn't able to build up and accumulate up to what I need right here in this level of complexity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.